I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of FreeDraw within Dr. Chrono. Now, over here on the side, you can see that Apple Pencil is plugged into my iPad Pro, and it's actually charging. So I can actually pull it out, and it charges fairly fast. So you can actually plug this in pretty quickly and charge your Apple Pencil. I'll put this right on here, so I have my Apple Pencil. And essentially you can go into a patient. I'm going to hit start visit right here. Go into Amanda Jones. I'll go into my custom templates. Let's see what we have here. Maybe this one is FreeDraw. There we go. So this patient eye exam actually has FreeDraw elements, and you can actually use Apple Pencil with the iPad Pro here. So if I click on one of these right here, I can actually just start drawing with Apple Pencil. Again, you can also, there's other options down here. You can see here options like what colors you'd like to draw. So maybe some people are a little sensitive. Red stands out, so I could go there and draw over here, show a little bit with Apple Pencil. We do have text, so you can actually type. So say I want to type right there, I can say issue. Here I can say issue. I'm typing on a keyboard with my iPad Pro, as you can see. Issue with save. So now that's a text element right there on the iPad Pro. Now the benefit of using Apple Pencil with iPad Pro is it's actually designed for iPad Pro. So this pencil right here from Apple is designed specifically for the iPad Pro. There's two sizes for iPad Pro. This is the smaller size, and I do have a keyboard attachment. This is a really good keyboard. I actually like the Logitech ones. They light up. The keyboard lights up, and you can actually type on it and use the pencil at the same time. So it's really a good, interesting workflow for any physicians who are looking for that. So I could type in here, get some more color. There you go, there's some more color. If I type on position down here, so you can tap position, you can zoom in certain sections. So say I really want just this focus on this one little area. You can actually do that and then start to select what you want to draw. So say I want to select that right there and draw. Then I click draw, click on there, and then I can start drawing again. Say, this is the area. And you can see here how fast Apple Pencil, it literally feels like a real pencil. So I highly recommend it. We also have an eraser. Do a big erase, so say I don't want that anymore. I can actually erase that right there. You can remove everything you've done. You can actually rotate the image here, so rotating. Undo button, so this is rotation. There you go. There's the undo button for what you just did before. Let me zoom back out right here. And we do have, so you can delete this work. So say you realize you don't want this work saved, you could clear canvas or remove note. So if I wanted to clear the canvas, I'm going to clear the canvas right here. And then you can actually clear the canvas. And this is all within the actual clinical note. So as you're taking notes, let me just go into like a standard note right here, into standard notes right here. I start filling things out. You can actually add FreeDraw elements. I just have them in my custom right here, but you can have all different types. So here's actually some good examples of knee drawings. So say I want to show someone a knee drawing and actually add that to their medical record, you can do that as well. So here's the knee, and you can do an explanation to a patient and talk to them. And using pencil, it really does create a good experience for a doctor. And what I like about Apple Pencil is that the charge is so fast. When I pop it in, it takes about 30 seconds. You can really just pop that right in there, charge it, and you can pull Apple Pencil right off and start using it. I do like some of the cases that actually, this case from Logi right here. You can actually slide pencil in there, and then you can close it up, and then slide pencil back out. And just talking about free draw a little bit more. So we have the rotation here, like we mentioned. You can rotate the image, positioning, so I can zoom in, zoom out. Drawing, you can draw. So let's do something. Since this is black, let's have something super light. Let's type in yellow, that right there, and say this is the issue area right there, issue. Now what's great about this is it actually becomes part of the clinical note that the doctor actually submits to the insurance company, and they save it on file as well for the patient. So if I hit save free draw, it uploads it, saves it into the note right here. So you can see the gray means that you haven't done anything with a drawing element, and the green means you have done something with the drawing element. So if I finish up and I hit view complete note, it actually shows you what's going to be sent to the insurance company, and that free draw element is actually sent to the insurance company as long as you press the save button. If you feel like you don't want to save it, you can walk a patient through something even and not save it. So that's another use case if you wanted to do some quick patient education. What's another good example of free draw with Apple Pencil? Here's a great example right here for cardiologists. So this is a template that we created in mind to review something with the patient in the exam room. So you can see here, review with patient, yes, no, yes, no. So if you didn't review it, you don't do that. But say you will review something with the patient, I can select heart internal anatomy, select that. You literally can just walk the patient through some patient education material right here to explain what you're going to be doing or what they need to do post the visit. So you can do the free draw. Again, yellow is pretty good. You know, it depends on the image. I think you have to kind of call it by ear, play it by ear. I think yellow sort of stands out a little bit, but you can talk about different areas and how, you know, blood might flow and those sorts of things. So it's a really interactive way to engage the patient, show them what you're going to be doing or show them what they need to be doing. And then you can also save that. So if I hit save free draw here, it actually saves this for documentation to give to insurance companies, to give to another provider. So I'm going to hit yes on that one because I reviewed it. And this one I didn't even go through, so I leave that one blank. But because I did save it, I hit save free draw, it actually saves it to this encounter with the patient. So if I scroll down, hit view complete note, I can scroll down to that drawing right there. And then this is actually submitted to the insurance company, and you have it on file to show everyone what you had reviewed with the patient, and gives you more context in terms of just having a better experience for the patient. So I do highly recommend getting a pencil with your iPad Pro, and any drawings or any visual experiences you want to give to a patient when you're seeing them. I think building out a template and loading in different types of images, it creates a context that makes you look really good. So one thing I wanted to walk through with everyone was the Apple Pencil and how to use it when taking a clinical photo. So if you have a patient, one of the powerful uses of the iPad Pro and having Pencil is that you can actually take a photo and draw on it and put that into the note and also share that with the patient. So here you can see the face sheet with all the information about a patient. Over here on this right-hand corner of our app, you see this little plus sign. The little plus sign actually allows you to take clinical photos where you can actually leverage the iPad's camera to take a photo, document on that photo for either your own records as a clinician or to provide that to the insurance company, as well provide that to the patient. If I tap clinical photo, let me put something in front. So say my hand right here. If I take a picture of my hand, let's do this quickly. There we go. I actually have a photo of my hand, so I hit use photo. enter a description of the photo. So we could say hand pain. And because this is the iPad Pro, you can actually attach a keyboard. And I have the Apple Pencil charging. You can pop it right into the iPad Pro. And here you can see there's a connector that you can actually connect your iPad Pro to a keyboard. I'm using the Logic keyboard, which is a very good brand right there. You can see the Apple keyboard come up, and if I put it on, the Apple keyboard disappears. So I typed in hand pain right here and hit save. So it saves that clinical photo. Now if I actually go into start visit with this patient and I tap right here, I can click on patient history, and that hand photo actually will show up in the quick history. If I go to that right there, you can actually see it. Now, one interesting thing is that you can actually share this photo, fax this photo, print this photo, and then the other one is free draw or create a task. I'm going to free draw on it. And with free draw, the concept is you can document, save that information from the drawing, and then provide that to a patient, save it for your own documentation, send it to a referring doctor, or send it to an insurance company. So the power of the iPad and the iPad Pro is that it has an integrated camera, so you could take rapid photos. And with Apple Pencil right here, which you can actually charge this within 30 seconds and it'll work for 30 minutes. You can actually use the Apple Pencil with your iPad Pro to do that documentation. So as you can see here, we have our bottom options. So I can draw. So let's select something right here. I'm going to select red. It'll be a highlight, larger. So I'm going to draw right here, say ring, right? And then where's the pain? So say we select this again, green, and we want something large. You can go right here and say this is like the pain area of the patient. And you can reposition. So if I go here and say I reposition and you want to get into like the details of a specific area, you can do that. Tap there. And then let's say we're going to type something, so I can type here and say pain area. So you can see how fast I can do this. It's super fast, and you can really navigate really fast around the iPad. So I'm just positioning, go back here, and say you want to remove something. So I was doing a test with the ring. I can actually erase that. So if I go here to the eraser, let's just erase all that, because that was just to show off what iPad Pro can do. So now you have the pain area right there. It's circled, and we do have a few other options here. So you can actually rotate. So you can rotate the image. So say you take it at an angle that you didn't want to use. Say you want it in this angle. You could use that angle right there. We also have an undo right here. So if I want to undo this, I can tap this right here and undo, and that comes back right there. So if I did want to save this, I actually can. And what you would do is you would basically just tap the save as new, and then that would go into the clinical note. If you're just talking to a patient, you want to walk them through something and not include it in their actual documentation, you can do that. You just press this trash bin right here, and then that would throw all of this work away. But if you actually wanted this to be part of that clinical note, you would simply just hit save as new, and it would upload this new document into the patient history with this right here. Now, what you can see here is that there's a photo right here, but this is a freehand drawing right here, and you can see the different icons. It's a little hard to see. Let me try to bring that closer so you can see those right there. These are just general visits and other documentation. Like this is a clinical note right there for this patient. Close that. And essentially with this freehand drawing now, what you can do is either share it. So say I hit share. You can share it. You can send it actually in a fax. You can print it. And I can go back in and start free drawing again, or start to create tasks for myself or for someone else in my practice to know to follow up with that patient or to do something for that patient.
By now you should have your apple traced onto 3 different papers. This is the apple you drew from observation the other day. You should have it onto 3 different papers. And what I want you to do is choose one of the papers, but it cannot be the watercolor paper. So the watercolor paper is thicker, and then you have 2 that are on drawing paper that are thinner and smoother. So pick one of the ones that is not on the watercolor paper, and that is the one that you will use today. So I'm going to use this one, and today we are going to be using chalk pastels. And chalk pastels can get kind of messy because it's just like using sidewalk chalk, only they're smaller and they work a little bit more smoothly than sidewalk chalk. So when you're working, it's always a good idea to have a piece of paper towel like this that you can put under your hand while you're drawing, because this likes to smear. Okay, it likes to get everywhere. So what you're going to do first is choose the color for your apple. So you're going to look at the apple that you have at your table and decide what color would work best for that apple. For my apple, I think I'm going to need a few different colors because I can see that it's yellow on top here and there's some like reds and oranges on the sides. So I'm going to start with my lightest color first. When you're working with chalk pastels, it's always best to start with the lightest color first. And I'm going to use my light yellow here to color those yellow spots on my apple. And you can just use the tip or the corner and it'll help you control what you're doing a little bit. So I'm coloring the yellow spot on my apple. And the yellow is kind of all the way around the top part here. So I'm going to create that yellow look that's on my apple. And I need to be careful because it's going to make a lot of dust. And I do not want to blow that dust for a couple of reasons. First, it'll smear all over my artwork. And second of all, it can make it so that my friends have to breathe it in, and we don't want that because it'll make them cough and all that stuff. So the next thing I'm going to do is get an orange, because where the yellow and the red meet, it kind of has an orange color. I'm going to put a little bit of orange on there for those spots. And I'm going to be careful that I don't get it in my highlight spot. So I'm going to go around that spot where the highlight is, because that's going to stay a nice bright white. I'm going to color it. And notice when I'm drawing it, I'm kind of drawing my lines the same direction that they go on the apple. So you can see there's kind of lines coming around the apple. So I'm kind of pointing them in the same direction that they are on my apple. And then I've got red on my apple. So I'm going to fill in the rest of this with red. And since this is such a big area to cover, I can actually use the side of this to fill it in, but you have to be careful when you get over to the edges that you don't go outside of the apple. So if you get close to the edge, you can use the tips of it or the skinny side to fill it in. And again, don't do anything with that dust because you're going to need it. So when I'm filling it in, I don't have to worry too much about getting everything. I can leave a little bit of white because I'm going to show you something to do after this so that you can fill that in. So I have my yellows, my oranges, and my reds to make my apple. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a clean finger. Finger that has yellows, oranges, and reds on it, or a finger that doesn't have anything on it yet. And I'm going to use that finger to very gently move that dust around that I made. And it'll mix the colors that I have. It'll blend them together. You can see how my yellows and oranges and reds are all kind of blending together. And I have a nice apple with different colors on it, just like that. Now I'm going to look at my apple and I'm going to look at this and see if there's anything I'm missing on it. And now that I have my apple blended, I can carefully pick it up and tap it onto the paper towel that's at your table. And you're just going to tap it gently, and you can see how the dust fell off of it. And now you have a nice apple without all that dust on it. And then I'm going to look, because my apple has a shadow underneath it, just like the one we drew. So we're going to make the table next, and we're going to use the colors to make the shadow. So you get to choose what color you want your table to be today. You can choose whatever color you want. I think I'm going to have my table be green. It's the complement of red, and I think it'd make a nice color. So I'm going to choose green, and I'm going to use the light green, and I'm going to fill in my table with a light green. And I have to be extra careful because when it gets to the edge by the apple, I want to make sure I don't get any of that. I don't want any of that to turn to mix together, because it'll make an icky brown color and it'll look really sloppy, and we don't want that. So I'm just using the side of my chalk right now to carefully fill in the table. Stay inside that line there. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Carefully fill it in. And I'm going to go right over top of the shadow, because the shadow is on the table. And that table is going to be the same color even in the shadow. So I'm going to carefully draw it, fill it all in with the green. Make sure I leave that dust there because I'm going to need it. And then, if you can very carefully, you can kind of see that I still have this spot here where the shadow goes. I'm going to make that darker for my shadow. So there's a couple ways I can do it. Since I use the light green, I can use dark green to make my shadow. So I can go in and carefully fill that shadow in with a dark green. And I can fill that in. It's going right over top of that light green. I'm filling it in, getting some dust of my dark green in there. So now I have my table filled in with my shadow, and I can use a clean finger. So I don't want to use this finger because it'll get orange in my green. So I use a clean finger, and I can use my finger to blend it so that that white's not showing anymore. And when I blend the shadow, I'm going to make sure that I'm careful that I'm blending it the same way the shadow goes. I'm not blending it out here because I don't want the shadow to spread, because the shadow is only in one spot. So I'm making that shadow just like that. And then I've got dark green on my finger now, so if I go up to that section, it's going to turn it dark green, and I don't want that. So I'm going to use a clean finger again. So by the time you're done, you're going to have to wash your hands a lot because you're going to have lots of chalk on them. So there we have our shadow, but usually right underneath the object, closest to the object, it's going to be even darker than it is out here. So I want to make this area darker. So there's some different ways I can do that. I can use the dark green again, or I can use a different dark color to make that darker area in there. So I think I'm going to take I have a dark brown here, and I'm going to use a little bit of that dark brown to make that shadow right up underneath my apple. And I'm just going to do it just like that, and then I'm going to use one of my fingers again to blend that in. Make it so that it blends in with that green. And you can see it made a darker shadow right underneath my apple. And I have a bunch of buildup on there, so I'm going to tap it. And now I have my beautiful apple. Now you can look close and you can see that there's a little bit of white along the edge of my apple. And I don't want that to show because it's going to look like it's glowing. So I'm going to use a clean finger again, or that finger that I used red on before. And I'm going to make it so my apple goes right to the edge. I don't want any of that white to show. So now I have beautiful shadow on the table, but this doesn't look quite right, does it? Because I have all this, it's all one color, but there's a shadow here. So I want to take and I want to make a shadow on my apple. Because just like we looked at when we used the flashlights, when you're shining light over here, this side of your apple is going to be in shadow. And we want the same thing on our apples here. So I'm going to take a color and make a shadow on here. So you'll notice even just with using my fingers, because my finger had some of this brown and green on it, and just by using that, I can make a shadow on my apple. It makes this side of my apple a little darker. See how I made that little bit of shadow? But I think it needs a little more than that. So I'm going to get a dark color again. Let's see, I've got red. I could use red, but that's going to make it seem brighter because red is such a bright color. So I'm actually going to use the complement of red. The complement of red is green. It's the opposite of red is green. So I'm going to use the complement. And I'm going to go right along this edge, right where my shadow is. And just lightly I'm going to use that green to make a little bit of a shadow there. Okay, I didn't press real hard. It's still kind of streaky, but I've got a nice shadow there. And then I'm going to take, and again I'm going to use my finger to blend that in to make that shadow on this side of my apple. I'm only doing it on the shadow side of my apple. I don't want it on the side that the light's going to be on. And then I'm going to tap it again to get that extra off. So now I have an apple with a shadow. The next thing I need to do is add my stem. So I'm going to be careful because when I add my stem, I don't want to get anything else on it. So I can actually use this paper towel again and rest my hand on that so that when I'm drawing, I'm not going to smear what I have done. So I'm going to very carefully, just the corner of this chalk that I have, very carefully, I'm going to draw my stem in there. And then I'm going to tap it. Now I have a beautiful apple with a stem. So now I have my shadows down here, and I have this spot right here that has a little bit of a shadow in it, so I can actually just go with my finger and use that brown from the stem to make a shadow in there. So it looks a little bit more like there's an indent there because my apple has this spot in the top. So now there's a little bit of a shadow there. The last thing I need to do is add a highlight on my apple. So I'm going to take the white, because my highlight got covered when I was spreading that color around. I'm going to take that white and I'm going to carefully fill my highlight back in with white. And there's a highlight over here, but then there's also going to be a little bit that comes over on this side too, because my light's coming from up here. It hits this side and a little bit of this side. So I can add a little bit of white on this side to make some highlights too. And even on this edge here, it's going to be lighter than over here. So I'm going to add a little bit of white here. And then I can use my finger, one of my clean fingers, to blend that in a little bit so that this side of my apple is lighter than the other side of my apple. So you have the light coming down here. Now when I blended that, I kind of blended in my highlight a little bit. So I'm going to add that highlight back in there. Make sure that's a nice bright highlight in there. So now you have a beautiful apple, and you have a beautiful shadow from your apple. Great job, third graders.